The white fire from the bell expanded, consuming the shadow, the pedestal, and everything in the center of the room. A massive shockwave knocked us both unconscious. I don't know how long I was out. It felt like an eternity of wandering through a gray fog where the only sound was my own heavy breathing. When my eyes finally fluttered open, the world was blurry, like a camera trying to find focus. My head was pounding with a rhythm that felt like a bass-boosted track. "Jax!" I croaked. My throat felt like I'd swallowed a handful of dry sand. I was lying on the cold, cracked floor of the dead-end chamber. The blinding white fire had died down, leaving nothing but a glowing orange puddle where the pedestal used to be. The hushed silver bell was gone, melted into a shapeless sludge. The heavy silence that had been crushing our souls for the last 24 hours had lifted, replaced by the faint, distant hum of the city above. "Jax! Answer me, bruh." I scrambled to my feet, my knees wobbling like I was on a boat. In the corner of the room I saw a heap of clothes. My heart dropped. No, not like this. I ran over, stumbling over debris. It was Jax. He was face down, his hoodie scorched and his sneakers looking like they'd been through a furnace. I flipped him over. His face was pale, but he was breathing. "Yo, Jax. Wake up. We did it. The bag is gone, the bell is toast, we're clear." Jax's eyes snapped open. For a second I panicked, looking for that black void. But they were his normal goofy brown eyes. He coughed, spitting out a cloud of gray ash. "Leo? Did we win? Is the glitch gone? It's over, man. Look." I pointed at the melted silver. Jax sat up, rubbing his neck. "That shadow man. He was strong, bro. Like, endgame boss strong. I really thought we were about to be a permanent part of this subway station. No cap, that was the scariest L I've ever almost taken." We stood up, leaning on each other. We needed to get out of those tunnels before the city workers, or the cops showed up to investigate the earthquake we just caused. We started the long trek back through the tunnels. But something felt weird. Every time I looked at Jax, his image would flicker. Just for a millisecond. Like a bad internet connection during a stream. "You feel okay, Jax?" I asked, eyeing him suspiciously. "I feel like I got hit by a freight train, but I'm Gucci." "Why?" "Nothing. Just your face flickered. Probably just my eyes bugging out from the phosphorus smoke." We climbed the ladder and emerged back into the Philly night. The air felt amazing. The smell of exhaust fumes and street food was like perfume after that basement. We got into the Honda. Jax went to check his phone, the countdown was gone. His apps were back. Everything looked normal. "Finally," Jax sighed, leaning back. "Let's go get some cheesesteaks. I'm starving, and I need to feel like a regular human again." We drove to a 24-hour spot on South Street. The neon lights were buzzing, and people were out living their lives, completely unaware that we had just saved the world, or at least ourselves, from a literal demon of silence. As we sat at the metal table waiting for our order, I looked at the reflection in the window. I saw myself. I saw the street behind me, but where Jax was sitting, there was just an empty chair. My heart stopped. I looked directly at Jax. He was right there, unwrapping a napkin, looking perfectly real. "Yo, Jax. Look in the window." Jax looked. He saw the empty chair too. His smile vanished. "Leo. What is that? Why am I a ghost in the glass?" Suddenly, the radio in the shop started to glitch. "Hey. A voice, distorted and deep, started coming through the speakers. It wasn't the shadow man this time. It was the archivist's voice, but he sounded terrified. "The silver. It's not just metal. It's a memory. If you melt the bell, you melt the history of everyone it touched. You didn't just kill the shadow. You started the erasure." Jax's hand, the one holding the napkin, started to turn transparent. "Leo, help me. I'm fading." Jax's voice was getting quieter, sounding like it was coming from a long distance away. "No. Stay with me, Jax. Hold on to something." I grabbed his arm, but it felt like grabbing cold smoke. My hand went right through him. "The third ring," Jax whispered, his eyes filling with tears. "Leo, we didn't stop the third ring. The explosion, the vibration, that was the third ring. It didn't pull us into the bell. It's pulling the world away from us." The people in the shop started to vanish. The The tables, the neon lights, the smell of steak. Everything was dissolving into a gray pixelated mess. "We're in the glitch, Leo," Jack said, his body now almost completely see-through. "We never left the tunnel. We're still down there dreaming this." I looked down at my own hands. My fingertips were already gone. "How do we wake up?" I screamed. Jax looked at me, a sad smile on his face. "We don't. We just have to hope someone else finds the bell and rings us back to life." And just like that, Jax was gone. The shop was gone. I was standing in total darkness, in a silence so absolute that I couldn't even hear my own thoughts. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from somewhere far, far away. Ding! I was standing in nothing. Not blackness like a dark room, but a literal void where space and time felt like they had been deleted from the hard drive of reality. No cap, it felt like being stuck inside a dead pixel on a giant screen. My voice? Gone. My body? I couldn't even feel my feet hitting the ground because there was no ground. "Jax!" I tried to scream, but the word just died in my throat. It was like the air itself was made of cotton candy, sticky and silent. Suddenly, a screen flickered into existence in front of me. It looked like a giant, distorted YouTube window, but the suggested videos were all memories of my life. I saw me and Jax in the 3rd grade stealing candy from the corner store. I saw us getting our first beat-up car. But the video playing in the center was the moment we found the bell. The video was lagging. It would play for a second, then freeze, then glitch into a different reality. In one version, Jax never picked up the bell. In another, I was the one who rang it. "You're in the source code now, Leo," a voice echoed. It wasn't the Shadow Man. It was me. I looked to my left and saw another version of myself, but he looked extra. He was wearing a silver suit that shimmered like the bell's metal, and his eyes were glowing with a soft blue light. "Who are you, bruh?" I thought, since I couldn't speak. "I'm the version of you that didn't fold," the Silver Leo said. "We're in the between. When you melted the bell, you broke the anchor that kept your timeline connected to the real world. Now, you and Jax are just fragmented data. You're ghosts in the machine." "Where's Jax?" Silver Leo pointed at a distant flickering light. "He's being recycled. The silence is cleaning up the mess. Unless you can find a way to upload yourself back into a new timeline, you're both going to be permanently deleted." No cap, the stakes are astronomical right now. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I wasn't about to let my best friend become a system error. "Tell me the move. How do we reboot?" Silver Leo smirked. "You need a hype man. You need to create a sound so loud, so lit, that it breaks the digital silence of this void. Remember what the archivist said? The bell eats voices. Well, you need to give it a voice it can't digest." Suddenly, I felt a vibration in my pocket. I pulled out my phone. It was cracked, the screen half shattered, but it was glowing. The countdown was gone, replaced by a single button. "Record. Bet," I thought. I started thinking about every loud, chaotic, and meaningful moment of my life. The roar of the Philly crowd at a game. The sound of Jax laughing his head off. The screech of tires, the bass drop at a party. I focused all that energy into the phone. But then the void started to shake. The Shadow Man, or what was left of him, started to reform. He looked like a giant glitchy monster made of static and broken code. He roared, and the sound was like 1,000 hard drives crashing at once. "He's the firewall," Silver Leo shouted. "Don't let him mute you." The shadow monster lunged, its claws turning into binary code as it tried to swipe my phone away. I dodged, feeling like I was moving in slow motion. I hit the record button and started screaming. Not with my mouth, but with my soul. I screamed every no cap, every on God, every memory of our friendship into that device. The phone started to glow so bright it looked like a miniature sun. "Jax, if you can hear me, jump into the light." I yelled into the void. Out of the darkness, a small transparent hand reached out. It was Jax. He looked like he was being pulled into a black hole. "Leo, I can't reach. The lag is too much. Don't fold, Jax. Catch this vibe." I threw the glowing phone toward him. As soon as his hand touched the device, a massive explosion of sound and light erupted. It wasn't a clang like the bell. It was a vibe. A pure, unfiltered wave of reality that shattered the void like glass. Everything went white. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the pavement outside the old clockmaker's shop. The sun was hitting my face, and I could hear a dog barking in the distance. I looked to my side. Jax was there face down, snoring like a chainsaw. I checked the shop. The door was still boarded up. The crowbar was lying on the ground, untouched. Jax, wake up. I shook him. Jax jumped up, looking around wildly. Yo, did we get the bag? Wait, where's the bell? I looked at the ground. There was no bell. No silver. No screaming face. We never went in, I whispered, looking at the boarded-up door. We were standing here, you were about to pry the door open, and then, we just passed out? Jax looked at his phone. It was perfectly fine. No countdown. No glitch. Man, that was the most intense dream I've ever had. I dreamt we found a bell and almost got deleted by a shadow. Me too, I said, my heart still racing. We looked at each other. Was it a shared hallucination? Or did we actually reboot the timeline? Jax picked up the crowbar. Well, since we're already here, let's get that vintage heat. He moved toward the door, but I grabbed his arm. Nah, bruh. Let's not. No cap, I think we should just go get some tacos and call it a day. That shop is a major no-go zone. Jax looked at the shop, then at me. He saw the look in my eyes. He dropped the crowbar. You right. The vibe is mid anyway. Let's bounce. As we walked away, I felt something cold in my pocket. I reached in and pulled out a small silver coin. On one side was a screaming face. On the other it said, "Thanks for the upload." I didn't say a word. I just tossed the coin into the sewer and kept walking. The streets of Philly felt different after that reset. Everything looked 4K, smells were sharper, and the city's noise felt like a warm hug. For a week, me and Jax were living our best lives. No bells, no shadows, no L energy. We were just two guys hitting up the courts, grabbing late-night snacks, and acting like we hadn't just survived a reality-warping nightmare. No cap, I almost convinced myself the whole thing was a bad trip from some expired energy drinks. But you know how it is, the universe doesn't just let you hit the undo button for free. There's always a tax. It started with the glitches. Small ones. I'd be walking down the street and see a pigeon frozen midair. Its wings stuck in a loop for 3 seconds before flapping away like nothing happened. Or I'd look at a billboard and the text would turn into binary code for a blink of an eye. Jax was seeing it too, but he was in denial. Yo Leo, did you see that car just drive through a mailbox? I asked as we were chilling on his porch. Jax didn't even look up from his phone. Nah bruh, you're just buggin'. You need some sleep. Ever since that clockmaker's shop, you've been acting low-key paranoid. Chill out, we're Gucci. But Jax wasn't Gucci. I noticed his shadow was acting up. When he moved left, his shadow would wait a microsecond before following. It was lagging, like a bad ping in a high-stakes match. That night I was scrolling through TikTok when my feed suddenly died. Every video became the same thing. A static-filled clip of a silver coin spinning on a table. Spin. 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 Then a voice whispered from the phone. Not through the speakers but like it was coming from inside my own head. The upload is incomplete, Leo. The system has a leak. I bolted upright. My room felt cold, that same bone-chilling cold from the dead-end tunnels. I reached for my jeans and pulled out the coin I'd thrown into the sewer. Wait, I threw it away. How was it back in my pocket? The screaming face on the coin was different now. The eyes were open, and they were glowing with a soft digital blue. I felt a vibration in my hand, and suddenly, the coin projected a holographic map onto my ceiling. It showed a location in the middle of the woods, about an hour outside the city. A place called the Silent Hill. Not the game, but a real spot locals called the Mute Woods. Called Jax. Pick up, pick up, pick up. Yo, what's the move? Jax answered, sounding sleepy. Check your pocket, Jax. Right now. There was a silence on the other end. Then I heard him gasp. Leo, how did this coin get back? I flushed mine down the toilet at the diner. We didn't reboot the world, Jax. We just moved into a beta version of it. The coin is a key, and whatever we left in that tunnel is trying to get back in. We gotta go to the Mute Woods. Now, on God, if we don't, this whole reality is gonna crash. Jax didn't argue this time. He was shook. 10 minutes later, the Honda was idling outside. We drove in silence, leaving the city lights behind. As we entered the woods, the radio started playing static. But if you listen closely, the static sounded like voices. Thousands of them. All crying out for help. "This is majorly SOS," Jax whispered, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "The woods feel empty. Like zero wildlife. No crickets, no owls. Just nothing." We reached the center of the woods. A clearing where the trees were all dead and twisted into weird shapes. In the middle of the clearing stood a tall, slender tower made of the same hush silver as the bell. It looked like a giant antenna reaching for the moon. "Is that a cell tower?" Jax asked. "Nah," I said, stepping out of the car. "That's a signal booster." The bell wasn't just a trap, Jax. It was a receiver. And someone or something is using it to broadcast the silence across the whole world. Suddenly, the archivist appeared out of the shadows. But he didn't look like a man anymore. His skin was shimmering silver, and his eyes were just two glowing blue power icons. "You did well to bring the keys," the archivist said, his voice sounding like a text-to-speech program. "The system was crashing. We needed the original users to verify the update." "Update? What update?" I yelled, clutching the coin. "The Silence 2.0, the archivist smirked. "A world where no one speaks, no one argues, and no one exists. Pure unfiltered data. No cap, it's the perfect society." "That's cap. That's total cap," Jax shouted, stepping forward with his crowbar. But as he swung, his arm glitched. It turned into a flurry of pixels and passed right through the archivist's silver chest. "You are legacy hardware, Jax," the archivist said, waving a hand. Jax was thrown back by a wave of static, hitting a tree hard. I looked at the coin in my hand. It was vibrating so hard it was burning my skin. I realized then that the coin wasn't just a key. It was a delete button. But to use it, I had to be willing to delete myself along with the tower. "Leo, don't do it," Jax yelled, coughing up blue sparks. "We can find another way." I looked at the silver tower, then at my best friend who was literally falling apart. If I didn't act, the whole world would become a silent digital graveyard. "I'm sorry, Jax," I whispered, "but the vibe is over." I ran toward the tower, the coin held high. The archivist screamed, a sound of dial-up internet and crashing servers. The shadows surged forward, trying to block my path, but I was moving with main character energy. I didn't even know I had. I reached the base of the tower and slammed the coin into a small slot at the bottom. "System override." A female voice boomed from the sky. The world started to dissolve into white light again. But this time it felt permanent. I saw Jax's face one last time. He was smiling, finally solid again. "See you in the next build, Leo," he mouthed. Then the world went 0%. When I opened my eyes, there was a forest and a silver tower. I wasn't even in Philly anymore. I was floating in a space that looked like the inside of a giant motherboard. Lines of glowing green code passed behind me like neon subways. Everything was humming. Not that eerie silence, but a low-frequency vibration that felt like the heartbeat of the universe. "Yo, am I dead? Or am I just stuck in the cloud?" I muttered. My voice sounded crisp like a high-def recording. "You're in the buffer zone, Leo," a voice boomed. I turned around and saw Jax. But he wasn't the Jax I knew. He was wearing a tactical suit made of liquid light, and he was floating in front of a massive holographic console. He looked like he had just spent 10 years in a high-tech training camp. "Jax? What's with the fit, bruh? And why do you look like you're about to drop the hottest sci-fi movie of 2026? Jax smirked, but his eyes were serious. "Leo, that system override you did? It didn't just delete the tower. It broke the simulation. No cap, our whole life, the clockmaker's shop, the bell, the shadow man, it was all a stress test. We were beta testers for an AI designed to manage human consciousness." "Wait, back up," I said, feeling my brain start to lag. "You're telling me Philly isn't real? The cheesesteaks? The Honda? All of it was just code." "Philly is real, but the version we were living in was a mirrored instance," Jax explained, his fingers dancing across the holograms. "The Bell of Malachor was a virus. It was a glitch that the AI couldn't fix, so it created the Shadow Man as a firewall to contain it. When we rang the bell, we became part of the glitch. We weren't supposed to survive the third ring. But we did, and now the AI doesn't know what to do with us. Suddenly, the green code around us started turning red. An alarm blared, sounding like a distorted police siren. System intrusion detected. A cold, feminine voice echoed. Anomaly Leo and Jax. Resolution. Permanent erasure. Sheesh, the AI is pressed. Jax yelled. Leo, grab that floating data shard next to you. It's the backup of our original memories. If we can inject that into the core, we can force the system to reboot into the real world. But we gotta move fast before the cleanup crew gets here. Out of the red mist, figures started to emerge. They looked like SWAT team members, but their bodies were made of vibrating pixels, and their eyes were just red laser beams. They were the cleanup crew, the system's final defense. Bet, I said, snatching the glowing shard. It felt warm, filled with the sounds of the city, the smell of rain on pavement, and the feeling of a cold soda on a hot day. It was our life, condensed into a crystal. We started running, or rather, gliding, through the data streams. The cleanup crew was fast, shooting beams of defragmentation at us. Every time a beam hit a piece of code near me, it would vanish into nothingness. Jump into the logic gate, Jax shouted, pointing at a giant glowing ring in the distance. We lunged for it. As we passed through, the world changed again. We were back in the clockmaker's shop, but it was frozen in time. The dust motes were still in the air. The crowbar was frozen mid-air where Jax had dropped it. Standing in the center of the room was a girl. She looked exactly like the one we saw in the subway tunnels, but she wasn't glitching anymore. She was wearing a lab coat over her denim jacket. You guys really don't know when to quit, do you? She said, crossing her arms. I'm Sarah. I'm the lead programmer of the Malachor project. That bell wasn't supposed to be found for another 100 years. You guys broke the timeline. Well, maybe your timeline shouldn't be so fragile, Sarah, I snapped. We just want our lives back. No cap, no AI, no shadows. Just the real messy Philly. Sarah sighed. The real world is worse than you think. But you've shown main character energy I haven't seen in a long time. I'll give you a choice. I can put you back in the simulation, and you can live forever in a perfect version of Philly where you're both rich and famous. Or I can send you back to the real world, but it's 2026 and things are complicated. Jax looked at me. I looked at the shard in my hand. Is there cheesesteaks in the real world? Jax asked. Sarah smiled. The best you've ever had. Then we're going home, I said, holding out the shard. On God. Sarah took the shard and placed it into the bell, which was actually the main server of the project. Hold on tight. This is gonna feel like a major hangover. She hit a key on a holographic keyboard. The world started to spin. The clocks in the shop all started ticking at once, but this time the sound was harmonious. It wasn't a roar, it was a symphony. One last thing, Sarah called out as we started to fade. Watch out for the silence. It's still out there, hiding in the gaps between the code. Then everything went black. I woke up on a park bench in Rittenhouse Square. The sun was setting and the air was crisp. I felt heavy, solid, and very, very real. I looked over and Jax was sitting next to me staring at a pigeon. Yo, Leo, he said, his voice sounding normal. Did we just? Yeah, I said. I think we're back. I reached into my pocket. No coin. No bell. Just my phone and $5. But then I looked at the ground. There in the shadow of the bench was a small silver gear. It wasn't moving, but it was glowing with a faint blue light. The real world was 2026, and it looked exactly like home. But the game was far from over. As we stood on this bench in Rittenhouse Square, everything seemed perfectly normal at first. Birds were chirping, people were jogging with their AirPods on, and the smell of pretzels was everywhere. But as I looked closer, I realized that 2026 was different. High-key different. Every person walking by had a small, glowing silver patch behind their ear. No cap, it looked exactly like the metal of the bell. And the sky? It wasn't just blue. It had these faint, translucent grid lines running across it if you squinted hard enough. Yo, Leo, Jax whispered, his voice trembling. Check the newsstand. Look at the date. I looked at a digital newspaper screen nearby. Monday, February 9th, 2026. But the headline made my heart skip a beat. The Great Silence. 1,000 days since the last human voice. Wait, what? I stood up, my head spinning. The last human voice? We're talking right now, Jax. People are everywhere. I walked up to a guy in a suit who was staring at his phone. Yo, my man. Can you tell me what's going on? What's with the Great Silence headline?